Hello gamers, this is J-Dog from GBAMFs, here with a live stream, unscheduled. Current events demand that I step up and get on and address some of this stuff. There's there is a backlog of stuff I know needs to in terms of documentary stuff and past current events, but those things will be addressed in due course. Right now, we're looking at some next level stuff that's coming out right now, and it's all coming up super fast, super quick. So yeah, we got to look at this first. There's no way around it. All right, so I'm gonna give a little background. There's probably about like four or five different bills that are out there right now that are threatening like free speech online. Okay, fundamentally, they're kind of jeopardizing the way that the internet works, right? In basic terms, that's at a minimum. Okay, that's for certain. This is based kind of anecdotally, right? Number one, like many people use the internet on a day-to-day basis. If you're stopping to basically get carded or passport whatever online, it's not hard to imagine that's going to jam people up super quick. Just going from site to site, right? Not like conceptually a super easy thing to work with as far as flow online. But more than that, I mean, I've been doing tech IT work for 20 plus years. And this type of legislation to kind of just, and there's one in the UK. They actually already did theirs. It's called the Online Safety Act there. I mean, that's their business, but just in technical terms, right? And this doesn't take doesn't take a genius, and B, doesn't take someone that has my years of experience to tell you that like that's not a sweet technical implementation, right? Like they're having issues with that right now. That's in the news, so that's not a good thing. The In the U.S., where I am, where GBAMS is based out of, there is similar stuff actually like very quickly coming up right now, and that's really why like we need to jump on this, address this issue, because this is being rushed. Essentially, it's being rushed through, and it has the potential to break the internet effectively. Okay. If not in all ways, in some pretty powerful ones, and it's bad. It's a bad bill, right? Like there's several bad bills that need to be looked at, and I'm going to encourage you to oppose them. All right, this is going to be a really summary directive from us. The fact is, the timeline on these is it's radical. The only time, and I've been looking at this stuff, I mean, watching Congress do its thing for some time, and the only time I've seen them move on stuff like this, and it's not the fastest. I mean, there's been other like emergency legislation they do, but like this is a pretty accelerated time scale. Like it's only like a must-pass budget sort of thing, which actually is coming up. So like this is a real crunch. The chances are these bills, any one of them, and I'm going to get to them and put them on the screen for you, could just sail right through in the upcoming session. So that's a hazard. That's something that I need. We need to get the advisory out about and get it on people's radar. Actually spread the word about this. So let me get this up on the screen for you. So to start off with here. This is, and I'm going to encourage you to go to this website, right? Just straight off the bat here. Here we go. So, okay, so I'm going to go full screen. You should be able to see that. So basically, this is it's STOPKOSA.com, right? That's from the not-for-profit group, not affiliated with us, but I'm referring you to them for this purpose. The project by Fight for the Future. Pretty good group. Pretty good group. In my personal view, one we would be recommending when we have that all set up. So, in essence, we're looking at a censorship situation. The text of the bill. All right, there's a few different. Let me get that on the screen here. So this is called the Kids Online Safety Act. Now, what they like to do with stuff like this, in my experience, and anyone that actually follows the process, they could just as well call it, the Stars and Stripes, Star Spangled Banner. I mean, look at the Patriot Act. It's you can't oppose the Patriot Act, but there's a lot in there that was actually later removed, and some struck down by the courts. And generally, it's not. George Washington, just in mind's eye, I can't imagine him plopping down that bill and saying, "This is most efficacious," meaning effective in a good way, to make our country safe. I think maybe he would have went a different route. Maybe less is more, right? Rather than we're going to monitor everything everywhere all the time, and through that we're all going to be so much safer. That's not traditionally how it's worked. That doesn't mean that it can't work another way, but some people believe in there's a phrase. It's a very popular phrase, is "follow the science." Now, I have no opinion on that, as a phrase, apart from it. In principle, it's a pretty good idea, right? Science tends to have, predictable outcomes, right? Otherwise it probably wouldn't be science. I digress a little, but the thing here is there's no science to this, right? They're just putting these restrictions on the web with the Kids Online Safety Act. Well, that's great. I mean, what's the kids? Safe kids, very good. This bill doesn't really do much for kids, as far as I could tell, and a lot of these groups that actually monitor this kind of legislation, including the Electronic Frontiers Foundation. Hat tip to those folks, which they're pretty much nerd lawyers over there. Meant in the most complimentary possible fashion. They recommend opposing this, and for good reason. If you look at the Online Safety Act in the UK, what's going on over there, Wikipedia wiped out. I mean, obviously, stuff like Insta and TikTok and all that. Pretty much everything they want to card you for. And by card, I mean, this is a colloquialism in the U.S. They want to ID you. Okay. And we're talking about ID with, in their case, they want full biometrics. And by biometrics, what does it mean? Basically, okay, so if have an iPhone, someone has an iPhone, it's Face ID. All right. I believe that's the actual term for that. I don't have an iPhone, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Okay, so it's pretty much Face ID, with the added wrinkle and weirdness that you need to go open mouth in the photo. So that's fun, interesting, and a little weird. And I don't think that's that's not how the internet is supposed to work. It's not how it's worked the whole time, and I'm that old. I've been here the whole time. Rather a lot of the time online, it must be, I must admit. That's not how it's worked. And it's worked pretty damn well, for what it's worth. So, yeah, this is a bad bill. I think I'm going to ask, where are the parents, right? If this is to protect children, who's protecting the rest, all of the rest of the internet users, right? This is going to cause basically everybody to be compelled, in essence, all right, in simple terms, to dox themselves, right? Now, not to the public necessarily, at least not right away and directly, because they'll probably there's this is not the point of the legislation, to be clear. But considering like the T app, right, and some people have heard about that. Basically, like some ladies decided that they were gonna have off to the side chats about their dates and stuff, and so they needed to verify all their pictures and stuff before they could have those on an app have those chats. The T app, that's like tea, like spill spill the tea. And boy, did the tea spill there. So if you don't know that story, you could search that one up. It's kind of horrific. I mean, honestly, for them and whatnot. Cautionary tale. Granted, there was no security there, and this will, in some form, will it specifies security, right? But that's not. That's not the issue, okay? The issue is freedom. The issue is not breaking the internet as we know it, all right? The issue is not having to show, like, a passport, digital or actual, or biometric, because we're talking about, we have the so-called Real ID here now in the U.S. So although, like, again, Face ID is the Online Safety Act kind of thing, that's your option over in the UK, right? You could do that live. This may or may not include there's like several different bills, so I may be mixing up components if I tell you the specifics, but one of these, it may be KOSA, does allow you to do the same thing, right? Live, like Face ID, but otherwise it's going to be Real ID, and Real ID is you basically your driver's license or just state ID that has biometric components. So that's to say, it's going to be high resolution, like a high resolution photograph, digital photograph, megapixels. So enough so that you can get a really good, you can get math, right? Whatever math comes from the dimensions of everything on your face and whatever, you can create kind of a little equation from that, and everybody has, it's like a thumbprint, right? Everybody's dimensions are going to be a little different, so that's biometric. Basically, you have a signature, right? Mathematical electronic signature, and so that's a bio ID. Okay, same basic principle of what we're talking about over there, or a Face ID. It's actually the same technology, same process, same math involved. So what we're looking at here is age gating, right? It's really an ID gating of the whole internet, for the ostensible purpose of protecting kids online from like things they probably shouldn't be accessing, things, pornography, that's the big one, and also piracy, piracy sites. Although that's another bill, right? Like that is the, what do we got here? We just got so many bills coming. The Block Bad Electronic Art and Recording Distributors Act. I'll jump to that later, but I get that. I mean, I get that, but again, is the solution worse? Is the cure worse than the disease? Is the solution worse than the problem? And however problematic, in some level, at some scale, piracy may tend to lean toward, in terms of like maybe disincentivizing purchases. The question is, do you burn down the internet more or less so that you can, do you stop free speech in the main, just to kind of discourage people from being their, piratey, black-hearted selves, right? And I say no. I say no. Our founders actually were like super, for their time, liberal. And I'm not going to get into all the terms and like politics, but once upon a time is kind of significant, because I mean otherwise we wouldn't have probably done the whole internet thing. That's my guess. They were like quite liberal for their time. You could debate me in the comments or whatever. For the time they definitely were. And so they were like, yeah, freedom, and they were so insistent on freedom, and they just were so sick of like having that kind of, as they might put it, I think they did. I think there were pamphlets. I think, and I'm paraphrasing here, they mentioned something about, boot heels and tyranny and like oppression and stuff like that. Now, opinions will vary, right? I mean, different perspectives, probably different sides of the pond on this. Nonetheless, a separation did occur. This is a fact. And some people think that it was rightful and a pretty good idea. Okay, so, and I'm, in full disclosure, I'm more leaning in that camp. Okay, that said, this kind of goes in a fair amount of the way of like stepping back from that, in my opinion, right? KOSA is, is for the kids, but it's it's very it's very bad for being able to access things online for everybody that's supposedly not a kid, right? And even if this works perfectly, the chances are it's not going to do everything it could to help kind of protect kids online. More or less, there's two things. Two things help protect vulnerable populations that are online. They, whoever their caretaker is, right, could be parent. We're also talking about the elderly, right? The elderly are a vulnerable population too. There's also people that are, need a little help mentally, right? For something, from whatever ground that is, they're going to need kind of a chaperone, right? They need a wing person for their internet experience. That's fine. That's cool. We want to make sure that those people have that, because people will scam you online. They'll scam you, show you things you don't want to see. Just like like in a big city or something, that shit happens, right? You need to be able to protect yourself, and have people that are there, your caretakers, all right, whoever that may be in your life, or for those for who that applies, which is not most able-bodied, sound of mind adult persons, right? So that's tend to be a more of a minority population that needs a little extra help. Includes kids and old people. You want to make sure that you have a foundation in informing, and I'm going on a little tangent here, but as an IT guy, it's my prerogative, right? Education is the name of the game, and actually, this is the point here, right? Whoever your caretaker is, it may be your IT guy, if you hired him. In this case, you're watching me. So I'm gonna say, you should get advice by someone that knows a little bit better. That's like number one. If you don't have that out of the gate, ain't no KOSA gonna protect you. All right. This is not a comprehensive solution. This is a several broad categories of what games. It's supposed to protect you from drugs online, which, okay, yeah, you definitely don't want to blunder into that. And then of course anything to do with pornography, stuff like that. So stuff that's hazardous, right? Potentially, and generally vulnerable people should be protected from. But just to walk it back to the original point, you want to have someone that's actually knowledgeable and cares first to introduce you and guide you in your access to the web. Nobody is born with excuse me. Nobody is born with a tablet in their hands, right? They kind of practically are now, but they also practically pretty much shouldn't be. If you don't have someone that's actually giving you the basics of don't talk to strangers online and all of that, and you're going to be in a bad way. This is no substitute for parenting. It's no substitute for parenting. It's no substitute for some reasonable caretaker oversight. It's certainly no substitute for any kind of technical knowledge. This is important. It's taken for granted now that everyone has access to online, and I hear the it's a human right, right? Like I hear that. I'm inclined to kind of look at it in that direction, for what it's worth. But what comes with that is here. It's right here. You see, the duty of care. You see that? Duty of care. You don't just plop a like a toddler, or a teenager or anyone that's never driven before in front of a steering wheel. You do that, and you do that with the assumption of great and really irresponsible risk. That's not how it's done. It's irresponsible. Okay, it's negligent potentially. You computers, tablets, phones, they're technology, they're machines. Okay, just because they look really slick, and they do look really slick now. They used to look like straight up industrial furniture, but that let you know what they were a little more easily. Now they look all sci-fi-y, and that's cool. But they're still technology. They're still machines, and you shouldn't just like assume that you know everything about them. Because let me tell you, IT guy, 20 plus years, you don't know everything about them. I don't know everything about them. Most people watching definitely don't know everything about them. The politicians that wrote this, they probably know next to nothing about them. There is no way that I would. Not only is the text of this plainly a little bit questionable as far as like how it could be implemented, there's no way I would want the the boomers in Congress. Okay, in summary, some are, some aren't. But there's no way, and make no mistake, this is what that is. Cooking our procedures in tech for how we should deploy things and how we should operate things, because well, bad things are sold, right? Like sometimes you get a directive from on high in management in the technical department, and it doesn't make too much sense. Nonetheless, it's your duty, right? You have an obligation to it, execute it, to make that happen. Um, this one this one is a really tall order, right? Basically, are we gonna have psychologists, right? Eating disorders, depressive disorders. Okay, yeah, bad stuff. Don't want to push that out. Don't want people getting wrapped up, involved in that. But are we actually going to have like actual social workers, psychologists screen the web? Are they actually going to do that? Is this going to be? These are rhetorical questions to some extent. There are some provisions as far as how this is supposed to work, but how things are supposed to work in law and how they actually roll out, often different things. In engineering, right? In terms of like you've designed something, system, network, computer network, and then you put it where it's supposed to be. It's called a deployment, right? You put it in the field and into operation. Not everything works according to plan. Sometimes it does. That's fantastic. That's also the minority situation, right? Like you always discover things in terms of how it actually works in practice, and what resources you think you need and what ones you have. Basically, mucking around with the internet, like in a major way, with some very very lofty very sweeping safety related, safety coded objectives. It's not going to work out how they think it is. I could just say that off the bat. And no matter how idealistic and good this might sound, it's not the sort of thing you just want to drop on the internet and all our hundreds of millions of users. This is something that should be studied. it should have a some kind of research basis beyond the, oh, these things are bad, and we know they're bad, and we should cut them off. Okay, in principle, yeah, it's a pretty good argument, right? But basically, it's imposing restrictions on platforms, mandates on platforms, which require the user, requires requires me, requires everyone to go through bunches of extra hoops, and at the end of the day, I mean, whether it accomplishes some of its objectives or not, and I mean, if it did get enacted, of course I hope so. I believe it's going to pose a strong undue burden on like everyday adult, able-bodied, healthy adult internet users, who should be online in general, right? I mean, we're not talking about vulnerable populations. Absolutely should have that access, but again, a lot of them are going to require either starting out or in their consumption of the web some kind of guidance on that, and that's fine. That's fine, but that's really what's required, and not restructuring, retooling the whole internet, because suddenly, after decades of some of this kind of being there to some degree, some of it's gotten a little worse. I think some has gotten better. Some has been on one platform or another and whatever. There's always been some kind of shadiness online, just like there is in real life. The issue is like, is this like in a very broad measure, with a lot of stops and obligations to the user in terms of like, you have to prove your ID pretty much across the web, right? We're talking Online Safety Act in the UK. It knocked out Wikipedia, knocked out let me think, different sites. I mean, TikTok, I don't think anyone's too worried about, but that's. I mean, I could go through all the legislation, the details of it. Long story short, I'm urging you to call your representatives, senators, oppose this stuff. This is not the right solution, even if it's the right problem. It's not the right solution for the problems they're specifying, right? Protecting kids. There's better ways to do it. This breaks the internet, and I don't think it's going to help kids a bunch. It's pretty much just hurting adult access online, and there's also the potential for censorship and monitoring that's like not desirable on top of it. That may or may not be something that's really a principal issue, but why are we going to A, break the internet, and then B, potentially have those the tall weeds of like having creeping surveillance attached to the whole ID thing? It's certainly a possibility. It's been discovered in many other areas, coming out of the Patriot Act and things like that. Why are we going to do that for the maybe some kids are protected a little better, which I think it's great if even one, as the politicians will say, if even one is protected, that's good. And I agree with that in some perspective, in some removed perspective sense. This is something that's affecting hundreds of millions of people, adult people who use the internet every day for business, for entertainment business, for all manner of commerce, for research, communication, to conduct political discourse, actually, as a matter of fact. One of the more adult things that anyone does, although not everyone necessarily does it in the most adult fashion. I think we can all hold ourselves to a higher standard of decorum there in general. I think that's a good goal. If you engage in that sort of thing, this isn't really political. This is civic, what I'm doing here. But there's some point you could say that there's a tie-in there. So yeah, I think that these kinds of bills are not going to advance very much the objective of like saving children or increasing online safety, so much as the guaranteed outcome. They're going to restrict. Adult access and potentially chill, among other things, political speech online, which is a big no-no from the legacy of the Supreme Court rulings. Our founders would have said like, well, I don't know exactly what they would have said, but they would have been very down on the idea that okay, actually, there's two phrases. And this is Ben Franklin. I'm paraphrasing. Those who would trade liberty for safety deserve neither. That is a summary paraphrase. I think I got that one right. I actually will look it up. But the other one, and this goes back to how I mentioned how liberal the founders were, right? The culmination of the point I was making there is they actually said their standard is they'd rather let, I believe, 9 out of 10 criminals go. This is how strongly they felt about it. Versus imprisoning one innocent man. Okay, that's how strong a standard. And they were dealing with some, I think, we could safe to say some BS in terms of heavy-handed. Again, this is an American perspective, heavy-handed government. So they're pretty much like F that. No, it's like we would actually let that many potentially guilty go rather than one innocent man be sent to life or death. So I mean that's a very strong standard. I think I'm going to lean in favor more of what they were in favor of. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Some people would say that's badass. Yeah. Yep. They're very idealistic guys. Very high standards. On the side of not imprisoning and stifling free speech and all that. Pretty cool stuff. Many people have agreed for some hundreds of years. That's pretty cool. Now the politicians in some places seem to think that for a good cause, always for a good cause, that it's worth giving up essential liberty. I'm going to disagree with that, and I'm going to disagree with it in principle, and particularly with some of these bills. So let me get to the names of the bills. We have KOSA, right? So-called KOSA, 1748 Senate bill. We have Screen Act, Senate 737. That's the Screen Act. Now this one is interesting. This is not directly break the internet. And as far as the principal side and its freedom, yeah. On the technical side, as an IT guy, I'm going to say, show me your plan, basically, right? Your engineering layout, whatever you're proposing, and what this is like, very very feel good ideas and a little peppering of like psychology where they want to stop people from having an eating disorder online and social media. And yeah, you probably as a parent, like if I had a teenage daughter, total hypothetical, right? I would be super duper aware that that's going on, right? Like that's a big thing. Like body image is huge as far as young people having issues with that. That's such a it's such an involved subject, but basically that awareness would inform my my observance of like are they spending like a lot of time online, which doesn't everyone know? There would be conversations, right? There would be conversations, and if there was some radical body change, right, in terms of like weight or something, I think that's a pretty, those things are pretty clear indications that you might want to get involved. But that's like there's no technical look. I've spent I've done my share of time in tech. I love tech. There's many things that electronics and like the internet, and there's many things high tech. There's many purposes that high tech can serve. Okay, it's not, as the saying goes, a panacea, right? A panacea is a type of mythical like drug that cures all ills, right? A panacea is the wonder drug that cures everything. There is no panacea. I mean, that's pretty common knowledge. Right? There's nothing that does that. So the same is true, actually, of technology. Technology serves specific purposes, and it could serve some general purposes, and it can serve it more or less well. Sometimes there's a crossover. Sometimes there's a little bit of margin flexibility. But it's like any like mechanical machine, right? Like a wheelbarrow doesn't go sideways, usually, right? Things have designed purposes, right? Directions in mind. The internet is not meant to be a pass like a border crossing, essentially. The internet is designed to be the opposite of like of a border, right? A checkpoint. Okay. Didn't didn't that whole Cold War thing that's supposed to be over, right? Is that wall still there? I hope not. But why are we going to build a wall online? Is it going to help kids? I don't know about that. So the Stop Hate Act, okay, changing gears a little bit, but same kind of vein, right? So is it going to stop hate? Well, gee, that would be wonderful. I mean, gosh, if we could just pass a bill, it's probably not going to stop. It's probably not going to stop hate. It may. This particular bill isn't going to help at all, in my opinion. But this is another one we're going to recommend that you call your representatives and senator and recommend against. Essentially, it's language policing online. Okay. That goes kind of hand in hand with the whole monitoring, and basically if we get a Screen Act, and that's kind of more in the monitoring direction, okay, and if we get a KOSA, right, which is kind of more the just dox yourself for the children, okay, sure, dox yourself for the children, yeah, that's real good. If we get that, well, then we could just go right over here to the Stop Hate Act. And I'll tell you what, if you have a tendency to curse, and maybe, I mean, some people do, they might use a spicy and colorful epithet, right, that makes a reference to any group. I mean, let's just say any group, right? I'm not going to be specific because, I mean, I could run afoul of this, for example, if it passes. That's not the immediate concern, but I think it illustrates the point pretty well. So, if you use anything like a slur online after you've doxed yourself for the children, you could be in kind of deep shit. Okay, because they have everything there, and I mean, is it a little terroristy to name call online? I don't think so necessarily. That's kind of a personal view, but I'm pretty sure terrorism, as it's typically defined, because these are the two things the bill is supposed to prevent, right? Access to like naughty materials, right? So like porn, or maybe in the other bill, pirated materials, and terrorism, right? Because we don't want kids joining whatever the popular terrorist thing is now. there's got to be one out there at any given time, I suppose. There has been for the last few decades. There was different ones before that. Before my time, there was other ones. Um, yeah, like you just don't want kids to like just stumble upon some terrorist materials online. Absolutely agree with this, right? In principle, and like, oh, gee whiz, that's cool, and oh, look at how much blood. Well, you know, in a video game is one thing, all right? You don't want to just willy nilly have people, anybody, especially kids, just traipse upon some terrorist crap online, right? Like, it's of course it's flashy. That's that's terrorism, right? They have a very big optic sell with that shit. So you want to protect vulnerable people, right? Impressionable people, people who may want to, maybe inclined to give away their entire retirement, for example, to somebody who calls them online. Um, you know, Email, right? They're some kind of, there's always some story. Whatever. Everyone knows the stories, right? I mean, the green texts are, there's some pretty funny green text out there on and we haven't got to YouTube yet. This is also on the YouTube platform, and they're actually singularly ahead of any of this. Tomorrow, YouTube is implementing their own age gate, and we're going to be recommending some action on that. We're going to be taking some action, and we're going to recommend some action, not legislative and all that, practical, right? We're on this platform. People are on this platform. Creators. We need to stand up to these kind of measures, just being imposed. And as a private company, they have their wherewithal. That's definitely their authority to do stuff like that. But it's pretty short notice. It's pretty short notice. These bills are all kind of coming hot and heavy from different countries in very short spaces of time. It's not giving a whole lot of room for that good old democratic debate and examination that we're treated to so much talk about in the media. So that kind of thing tends to take a little time, and require a little bit of input from the public, and also when it's something technical, like these are, some technical expert input would be warranted. It'd be prudent, a good idea. Um, circling back to like the practical effects of this, the stuff they're proposing in terms of like policing the whole internet for like making unseemly references to any given groups of people. Okay, which may be very bad, but it also is probably not something we want. The thought policing is not the right way in our view. That's something, as an org, we value free expression. Gamers speak our mind. All right, gamers, we don't pull punches in terms of the rhetoric used, right? In terms of like expressions, some do. You could always nerf your language. You can be polite. No one says you have to be impolite as a gamer. But we tend to be pretty frank, and also there's a lot of like usually humor and just quickness, wit involved. Does that mean that someone wants to do something bad to some people because they make an offhand remark that might hurt some people's feelings? Probably not. I mean, if you're in Minecraft and you're like, you're a so and so and so and so, and maybe they weren't doing their part battling the zombies or something. I don't play Minecraft a lot, but you get the point. It's probably not that they want to like injure that person IRL, when they're saying that, it's probably like they're just frustrated. And do you really want someone sitting there, in a very, presumably very cushy taxpayer provided chair, probably better than this chair, and with like headphones on and like, oh, are they gonna get that person that they just kind of cussed out in Minecraft? Like, is that the kind of shit we want to have people doing? I don't fucking think so. I mean, I would pretty much like, you know what? Forget this. I'm gonna go play, street hockey. I'm gonna play soccer. Do they want to destroy games? Because people are sussed out by that. That's probably the outcome. That's probably the practical outcome. That, or you get the infamous like FBI visits like 15-year-old because he called someone something. Okay, that's a warning is a warning, but the FBI, like this is really what they want to spend their time on, because it could be. It was in Minecraft. Very naughty language was used, and it could be terrorism, right? Well, okay. Yeah, it's a little bit bullshit, right? Like it's potentially most of the time that's not going to be a serious situation, and so we don't recommend that people support this, especially as it will impact gamers, right? Quick at the lip as far as spoken expression online could have long-term ramifications, very serious ones. If it happens to reference one or another group in a not nice way, okay. We don't want school marms. Nothing against them, but we do not want school marms, okay, or their equivalent, right? Sitters. There's a so-called there's actually parental control software. It was actually pretty good for a little while. Called Cyber Sitter. Okay, Cyber Sitter, and it had like kind of a little maid nanny, like a silhouette like this, kind of like with like a power plug or whatever, like pull the plug. I don't want the government cyber sitting everybody, especially able-bodied, able-minded adults, some of which may use vulgar and foul language either in-game or in the context of their civil free expression. Now, maybe decorum would be better to do, right, and not to use that language. But free expression is not there for like blowing smoke, right? It's not there for just what people want to hear. Otherwise, it wouldn't be free expression. It would be nice chatting. It would be the nice chat. The right to have nice chats with everyone all the time. Isn't that nice? Yes, it is. I like having those too. But sometimes I want to fucking curse. And maybe for purposes of illustration, I want to make a dirty reference to one or another type or condition of person, and that's an illustration. That's an illustration. It's like it could be a dig if I'm directing it at someone, but it could also be a good-natured dig, right? Gamers understand this. So the last one that I could really call out here as something that needs to be opposed is the Block Bad Electronic Art and Recording Distributors Act of 2025. Isn't it great how they do those acronyms? What a mouthful. Basically, this is anti-piracy in some huge perspective frame where they're like, well, we'll just we'll just pull down a whole websites. We'll just take down whole domains, and you could just you had a subtitle file. This is just an example. That's still under protection, right? It hasn't been released yet, and I'm not saying this directly applies here. This is kind of an illustration. But, say it was leaked. Say you got a leaked subtitle that's essentially the script of something, and you probably shouldn't leak it, and you probably shouldn't download leaked things. Okay. Yeah. True enough. But do we want to offer? Do we want to offer big government? Again, some dude with the headphones on, a very cushy chair, the opportunity to pull down a whole website because someone was dumb enough to upload, a leaked, a totally leaked, unreleased script, essentially, right? Like the dialogue subtitles. It's a very modest example. I'm sure there's people that leak the whole crap, but no, that's not worth it. Free speech and free access online has to accommodate a little at times sus and bad conduct. Now, should it be pulled down eventually? Sure, there should be a notice. There's DMCA. There is a process for that. There's already a process for that. This takes it to the next level so that pretty much, there's due process. There's such a concept in the U.S. I hope everyone is enjoying the low-key law class here. Imagine how much fun it was for me to pick this up in the first place. But anyway, due process is basically you just don't get to willy-nilly, in the name of justice, take certain actions, right? Like depriving people of their mobility, their freedom to move. In other words, like imprisoning, right? Or detaining at length. That's one example. And in a perspective sense, online, if you can't go anywhere without ID and you're kind of like walled in, it's kind of like a virtual form of that. So there's something to be considered there long term. Like, what are we doing? But also, Fourth Amendment, you have a right to your property, right? That kind of thing is also being really heavily conditionalized, marginalized, eroded, and eliminated, right? That's kind of some of the stuff that we're most opposed to, is the end of ownership for games. All right, stop killing games. Illustrated, highlighted that in a huge way. But that is kind of a single campaign, super good. 1.5 million signatures. They won. Gamers, that's a gamer W, a massive one. I congratulate us. That's everything good about what happened there. In the midst of this, though, we're getting, the so-called Beard Act, the thought policing, no words, making hurt feelings from the way you talk about people and things online. Which, am I underplaying it a little bit? The fact is, this correlates that with essentially terrorism, and I just don't see it that way in general. Now, I'll tell you what's wrong. It should be illegal to dox and to SWAT. Now, I think several states have already made it illegal to SWAT. There might have been federal legislation that just did that too, but that's not the issue here today, right? Shouldn't be able to dox, shouldn't be able to SWAT. That's an imminent threat and also like a lingering hazard to people. That stuff's no good. If you make a offhand slur online, is it terrorism? I don't think so. In general, right? In general, and if they have some articulable suspicion that somebody just really has it out for some types of some group, then the no language police bill, the Stop Hate bill, I don't think it's going to help. It's kind of a distraction, right? If you have a bunch of people running around chasing people for their language online, like cyber sitter, right? Like nannies, like thought police, it's probably going to distract them from going after someone that just never stops talking about one group or one or another group, and maybe they bought a bunch of, I don't know, fertilizer. Yeah, that's if it's serious, they should be on that. If you just call people names online, that's in the USA, that's your fucking right. that's freedom of speech, baby. That's it. You know, that's how it's set up here, and rightly so. Rightly so. Is it abused sometimes? Absolutely. Free speech also exists there for you to push back and say, shut the fuck up, right? Back off. Goes both and other ways, good ways and less good ways. So anyway, these are the ones we're recommending you oppose. Call your reps and senators, Congress people and U.S. senators, and tell them that these are not going to serve the ends that they're set out for, right? Like kids' safety most likely is going to be the least impactful outcome, facet of the enactment of this if it actually goes through. If it did and any kids do benefit from it, that's amazing. But what it is going to do is basically make everyone register to use the internet and turn the internet into a series of like passport checks. Okay, not a good situation. All this bad stuff. There's almost certainly definitely more direct and useful ways of addressing it. For one thing, I gotta wonder if they're actually, I don't know what they teach in school. It has been a minute. They didn't teach a whole lot when I was there. Okay. So like, if they're not teaching you to have some basically some skepticism about body image stuff online. Yeah, everyone could look better. I could look better. Everybody could look better, right? But you shouldn't be taking that. For granted. As a kid, it's easier to do. So they should be teaching some of that stuff at school. But before that, the people that make the kids, that's going to be the parents. Y'all got to step up. That's crucial. It's fundamental. How are you preparing them for this, right? And if you're not, that's where the issues come in. All right, that's you can't be there all the time, and you can't protect them from everything online. No one has full protection from in any social context necessarily. But you can help to inform and prepare young people by giving them the tools they need to know that not everyone's going to have their best intent for them online. Basically avoid hazards. There's so many different ones. And if you have some level of education, you're able to instill in them, and there is a degree of trust there, that's far more important, in my opinion, than whatever they're proposing here, whatever Orwellian nightmare that if the look. There's a thing called the VA in the U.S., Veterans Authority. That's where the government is supposed to take care of veterans. Now, people have different views on this, but I'll put it this way: there has been over decades, all right, many reports about them not serving our veterans like they need to, right? And the duty of care is if government really has really good standards, really reliably maintained and high and effective, right? We're not just talking about dropping a bunch of obligations on the internet like they're trying to do here. If that was the system, then I'd be much more inclined to say, yeah, we should give it a try. We should give this incredibly reaching and very, very safety coded plan a try, but it's technically it's not easy to implement, and chances are it will have maybe some neutral, maybe some beneficial effect, maybe some negative effect from, either immediately or long term, because this is like, it's a totally new paradigm, right? And nobody expects to be, in general, carded online. Maybe we should, because some people would like us to. I don't really buy that for the sake of it, like that we should do that. I think that follow the science isn't just a phrase, right? If you actually, believe in the meaning behind the expression, there has to be some kind of science there to follow. There's no science here. It's just a bunch of mandates. That's not good. That's not good tech work. As far as whether it's good public policy, whether it's good law, I'm gonna, as a citizen, I'm gonna give a skeptical veto to that. Why is it so rushed? What's the rush? Some of these problems have been out there for a while. How do we know the solution is that this is a solution that's going to fix it? I have strong doubts about that. It will impose burdens of everyone online in terms of like identify yourself, and potentially chill speech, and that's like again a big no-no from a real no-no from the Supreme Court. If you're chilling speech is fundamental. In a democratic system, democratic process, in a republic, type of government, you probably you definitely don't want to arbitrarily chill speech. It's kind of like stopping blood flow, okay? Practically speaking, in a body, right? Like that's feedback. A republic, right? It's actually like res publica. It's pretty much basically, feedback requested as a form of government. No feedback. What are we doing? So, this should be opposed. This is not. I won't say it's not what it sounds like, but you're not likely to get the result that it aims at. S 1748. Ask them to oppose that. S737 Screen Act. This is kind of the light version of that. One is, euphemistically speaking here, one is the full cavity search, body scan and everything else. That's kind of the KOSA for the children. Okay. And this is kind of the lighter version of that, where they just kind of give you a dog tag with a beacon. Okay. That's an illustration. It's, euphemistically speaking, but it's more or less, it's the same thing. Okay. So, this is going to mess up the internet. No KOSA, no Screen Act. Those are our recommendations against that. This is H.R. 6463, the Stop Hate Act, also known as Don't Say Bad Things That Might Offend Certain Groups, or any groups, right? Or any individuals that may be identifiably, go with a group. Don't hurt their feelings. It might be terrorism. Doubt. .jpg. Doubt. Okay. I mean, there's probably real terrorism that we should worry about. In any case, we don't want this. It's going to ruin gamer speech, okay? Even if we don't get the other stuff, we just get this. You could still potentially have platforms that are required to, like, log all of your spicy bans, right? You start slurring like crazy. Somebody may have to talk to you about that. I don't want that. That's bullshit. I mean, can you imagine if it was like that in like a locker room or a sports field or a bar? Really? What is this shit? I mean, anyway, the internet didn't used to be like this. We don't want this. Oppose this one too. HR 6463. No one wants or needs this. Okay. The last one is the beard, right? The Block Beard Act. Okay, basically, this is it's an overreach in terms of how they're going to address putatively piracy, right? There's already DMCA, right? There's already domain forfeiture, right? Basically, which is kind of like, it's like deed forfeiture, right? If it was a property, real estate, and like there's nuisance abatement things like locally, typically, right? If a property is routinely used for mischief, bad purposes, criminal purposes, sometimes they could just kind of say, oh, this is a blight. This is the property is it's issue property based on misuse, and then they could seize that. Similar thing online, right? That's already in law. That's already stuff they could do. This basically referring back to the due process stuff I talked about before, right? You have to do certain things in a certain order. There's a procedure. You can't just like because someone is accused of certain thing, you can't just like start seizing shit and just preemptively for their safety, for whomever's safety. Preemptively imprison them. We have due process, right? Before due process arose out of the so-called Civil War in the U.S. Before due process, it was possible to like make those high claims, right? Like this is related to the such and such a crime, and kind of jump the gun, like literally as a process, right? Oh, we're gonna go right to you being in detention, right? We'll just preemptively put you in the cell, and then we'll make sure that you have your day in court. Okay. Now, actually, that is a procedure in some cases, right? It depends on the crime and issue. Again, fun, kind of unrelated fact, but I don't know how fun it is. Anyway, due process is a thing now. You have to do things in order, right? Or justice says you're in the wrong. Okay, so I'm not like legit reading this. My point with it is this allows a way more aggressive approach to the Beard Act here. Where is I don't know if we have the number, right? This is like the text of it, because sometimes these things get reintroduced and all that, but it's going to be the same name. So if you call and say please oppose the Block Bad Electronic Art and Recording Distributors Act of 2025 or the Block Beard Act, they'll know what you're referring to. You don't need the bill number. It's better if you have it. But for whatever reason, sometimes it's easier to get, or they change it, right? They'll do a House or a Senate version. So just let them know that's one to oppose also. We're recommending you oppose that. Just because it will maintain due process. Okay, sure. Like everything has to have that now, but it's just a much more aggressive route to let copyright holder, like everyone knows someone, if they're not a creator themselves, that's had issues with, for example, YouTube's copyright system, right? Like the DMCA detection. Okay. No big knock to YouTube. There's other platforms that have the same issue, but it's pretty infamous on YouTube. And do we want to give even more power to people filing claims on that? Do we want to allow potentially like preemptory seizure for investigation? And I'm not saying all this is in here, but a lot of it leans in that direction. So the answer is no. They already have the procedures. There's already more than enough power and ability under existing DMCA and provisions to allow copyright holders to pursue their claims, take down copyrighted material, attempt to suppress leaks or whatever. Not always successful there. Depends on provenance of leaks or whatever. But that all is there already. We don't need basically you point a finger and boom, your website is it's locked. That's kind of where this is heading. So we're going to recommend the the Beard Act, the Block Beard Act, is one you urge your representatives and senators to oppose. Um, I really appreciate everybody hanging in on that. Legislation, right? This is um, it's important. It's extremely important actually because this fundamentally affects the way we interact with the internet, each other, and the world, right? Back in the day before the internet, right, they could pass whatever laws they want, and for the most part, it's IRL. You're doing your thing. It may or may not even come up where it affects you. All of this things are tightening up, right? So this stuff that they're coming out with, this type of stuff, again, Blockbeard. I don't have the bill number because I don't think it was assigned when that was there. HR 6463, Stop Hate Act, another one to oppose. Because the name sounds like maybe okay, but it's like thought police. You want nannies chasing everybody? I think not. 737 Senate Screen Act. Dog tag everyone online. Keep a kind of a paper trail. Not the best idea necessarily. It's a little bit of buyer beware. The internet is that, right? Don't, as the famous saying goes, don't believe everything you hear on television or read in the paper. Those sayings haven't been said as much lately. They need to be said a lot more. That's all I'll say there. But there again, don't believe everything you see or hear, including here. Although this is all legit for what it's worth, but you have to treat with some critical look what you see and hear online, including what politicians say. That's another one. Don't believe everything politicians say. You're going to be confused as fuck if you do, for one thing. So anyway, S1748, the Kids Online Safety Act. Great name, very bad legislation. S1748, ask them to oppose that. So yeah, these things are all tightening up. They're tightening up our internet, our ability to interact with each other online. All right, it's changing the way. It's rocking our world. Okay, and I mean this in a pretty skeptical and negative, frankly, sense. This stuff is coming up fast and furious, without a whole lot of. Some of these are moving quicker than others. The KOSA, the top one. If you just call and talk about one, because they may get a little bored of you if you start talking about more than two bills on a call. Just for what it's worth, you might want to write them about this stuff, and I'll put these in the description. But any one of these will dramatically affect either up front, like you have to show ID like practically everywhere, or basically not get online, or you get some Mick Kids Happy Meal version of the internet, which is, who knows how that's going to work. Like, that's not how it should work. The internet is fundamentally basically an adult space. It always has been, right? There's an expression I'm probably not going to quote here, but the internet is for. There's a play that had that line in it, and the internet. Let's just say it started out with an adult framework in mind. So if you're if you have someone that you care about and someone that you should care about, right? That's going online, you want to give them the talk and kind of watch and maybe do parental control and monitoring and all. Like, that's actually duty of care starts at home. It starts at home. It starts with the users, the owners of the devices, not some distant monitoring and policing and that's probably good to have. And counterterrorism, you're definitely going to need that on some level. There's a bunch of legitimate functions for that. But do you want them in your Minecraft server? counting how many times you said the this letter word, and talked bad in a certain way about I don't know, somebody's mother. I mean, like, this is not actually that unrealistic. That's kind of like what they're doing some other places. I'm not going to say it's exactly what they're doing, but you read the headlines from places overseas. Uh, WTF, mate? What are you doing? I mean, okay, that's what you want to do. That's not what I want to do. I don't think that's what America wants to do. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think that's what George Washington would want to do. If he had the internet. So yeah, responsibility and safety. It's going to start at home, and there's no substitute having some remote. Even if they're super high tech and like really sensitive person, you don't want to have like some rando essentially as the last stop for your safety online. That comes even as a fully adult and able-bodied and minded person. You want to cover yourself, right? Inspect your email. This is an aside, but inspect your email headers, right? Don't click links in your. In fact, just don't click links in your email, unless you're getting like a confirmation really quick to log in. Just don't do it anymore, and always expand the headers to see who actually sent it, right? Like, did they spell Google right? Did they spell Microsoft right? These are aside, but super important. So anyway, yeah, safety begins with you. Safety begins with the user. Just like you don't plop yourself down in front of a steering wheel without knowing something about it, about how to do the car thing. Just because it's all slick and easy to get online, it doesn't mean it's someone else's responsibility to keep you safe. Having that mindset is probably itself conducive to having a subpar experience online, right? You want to be aware, have your wits about you, because it's the digital city, right? So that's all important stuff. I'm gonna talk about some other stuff. I might have to go here. There's actually this touches upon a lot of stuff. This touches upon a lot of stuff. These issues. So I'm going to run through it again, just for anybody that's just tuning in or needs a quick recap. This bill going to make the internet broken, basically. Don't think it's going to super help kids. S 1748, Kids Online Safety Act, recommend against. To contact your senators and reps. The next one that we would recommend against, to oppose, that's to say Senate Bill 737, the Screen Act. More monitoring online. In principle, maybe okay, but it's the devil's in the details, right? Like, the platforms already have their duty, right? They have to do some things. The users have to do theirs. Where the government really gets involved there, not super easily, right? It's like adding a third wheel, in some cases that may or may not actually help safety. But it does add burdens and breaks flow. And the internet is nothing if not flow. The Stop Hate Act. Yeah, don't say no words about Nobody Online Act. We could skip that. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to say skip it, but like we could skip passing that one. HR 6463. That's gonna be one we don't need to bother with. There's already anti-terrorism laws out there for like really hardcore bad people. Shit talking people online. As much as it may hurt feelings, I don't think it makes you Bin Laden. I mean, and then we have the Block Bad Electronic Art and Recording Distributors Act of 2025. What is mouthful? Basically, this is just like a steroidal super DMCA. Okay. We have a lot and enough of DMCA sort of things already. There's plenty of tools in the toolkit. Um, this is effectively just like a this is more likely to be used for censorship or like um, corporate uh, sabotage the competition potentially. I mean, that's not a certified um, analysis of the bill, but like when you have something like this, you wind up freezing out, practical uh, competitors and practical uses of platforms. Um, that's not something that we don't need to give any more juice to the DMCA line of things. It's already pretty strong out there. These companies, the electronic, what is the name? The recording RIAA. They're not hurting for capital. If they really want to enforce a claim, um, they're gonna enforce it. They got the war chest. It's gonna happen. Yeah, that's like we don't need to give them. I believe the expression is corporate welfare. There, they definitely have their path to do that, and we're not recommending giving kind of steroids to the RIAA, so to speak. Or I believe the Electronic Software Association, for that matter, which is gaming. Uh, Definitely, they should be able to enforce their claims, but as we see, a lot of preservation, a lot of like improvisation. We're talking remix, mods. A lot of that stuff gets swept up when you enable too much of this, and that's bad. It's bad for gamers. It's bad for creativity. It's bad for competition in some cases. So yeah, we're gonna recommend against all that stuff. Um, yeah, like why do we want why do we want someone playing net nanny here? This is an article on the Stop Hate thing. Um, nah, I'm don't need to hire a net nanny. Need to hire common sense personally. It's not always available for everyone. For those who are common sense, who may be reasonably viewed to be common sense impaired, have issues with it. Personally, get a wing person, get someone to help you navigate the net. There's no shame in it. There's no shame in it. Some people need help. A second pair of eyes driving, right? Some people can't drive at night or whatever. Do what you need to. Protect the vulnerable populations, but do not break the internet in the name of. That's a bad way to do it. The internet is way more at this point in time, way more integrated. I'm going to say crucial and important. Important, obviously, but crucial because so much is transmitted through it. There was a point in time when like 911, the phone, just the phone line would be used for emergency calls. It still is. Okay, in the U.S., that's the number. Don't dial it unless you have an emergency. Okay, there's now like E911, and they'll like capture pretty routinely, I think automatically, your GPS location, even if it was off. Like you do that, you get a blip as far as you send them that. That's handled as data. Um, there's lots of things that the internet is a backbone for that aren't like the web itself, right? The web is what you see. It's front facing, user facing. Um, Putting more roadblocks on the internet, and even though showing ID wouldn't necessarily like come up in the context of an E911, just to be clear, that's not a direct example, but um, round and about of dealing with situations like that, you could actually be jamming people up from getting information. Say someone is looking for, say they need Wikipedia. if someone needs Wikipedia to find out about, for example, body image issues, right? They want to research it, or Reddit or Quora. Reddit is another one. I actually that's one of the ones I should have mentioned earlier. Reddit is another one affected by this, right? You have to buy the online UK online safety bill. Say you want to research it. Well, you could be disempowering the very people who need more information about what's involved in something like that, right? It's not always simple how you're protecting people by restricting access to stuff. It may just turn out that you're really disserving them. Like the whole point of the internet is to expand access and availability of human knowledge. Some people believe it just devoutly in that concept. I'm pretty much one of them. I grew up online. I made pretty good use of it, I'd say. I would like everyone else. I would even encourage, if they have an interest in self improvement to better themselves, to exploit that resource. While that is an option, right? Have that provide yourself the opportunity to seize the knowledge that's available online. And if that's being impeded, if that's being restricted by barricades, right, to access, whatever they are, even as simple as, say you're fully on board with and fully compliant and you have your ID already, there's also the practical matter of maybe you have to show it every 2 minutes, okay? It's bullshit, right? The internet, like the EU, right? It's kind of an analogy here. A bridge is an example. The EU originally, right, was like removing checkpoints, right? Removing, if I have this wrong, someone correct me in the comments. I'm open to being corrected on it. But I believe one of the main points, right, was what they eventually codified in the so-called Schengen area. I know this is a thing because it's more recent that it was maybe formalized that way. But like the point was to not have a bunch of like extremely stiff borders and choke points, if you will, to travel, to leisure travel and commerce and tourism and trade. It's also one of the fundamental organizing principles behind having a federal government in the U.S. originally, right? Some people would say one inspired the other a little. I think a lot of things from Europe inspired stuff in the U.S. first. But like having open access and free travel, and within the larger entity, and then like online, it's kind of like free travel online, virtual travel. It seems super important to me. And not just me. Anyone that saw the internet launch and grow and the beginning of the internet, okay, and also anyone, quite frankly, that reads a bit of history, U.S. history probably is going to be my favorite example because it's going to, it tees it up well, but the Schengen area's development in the EU more recently, kind of the same thing, although I think some of that's being rolled back. Not just some observations there. Uh, like that stuff was actually very fundamental and very it helped promote economic development in those places. It also, of course, helped like human knowledge and cultural exchange, right? The internet is based on that principle too. Okay, the internet is proto Shagan and it's post federal free travel principles, right? Just to underline what we're like underscore this in the U.S. model. Okay, that's how it was set up. I'm an IT guy, 20 plus years. Just to recap that, that's exactly how it was set up. Okay, that is what it's about. All right, if your internet is being stopped if your internet is based on the mother may I every 5 minutes, you have a bullshit internet. You have a meme internet, and that internet sucks. And you should either, go back to, go for, or seek an alternative internet that's not Mother May I every 5 minutes. If that makes you safer, it also probably makes you, to some degree, so much stupider in the process. Then in the long term, maybe it really isn't making you or anyone all that much safer, right? There's a saying, there's no substitute for common sense. Yeah, a permission seeking framework and an ID restrictive framework where we're talking about things as basic as like Reddit, Wikipedia. Okay, I don't know if they got to the Encyclopedia Britannica and Webster's Dictionary yet, but when it comes down to it, actually, and here's another thing, Urban Dictionary, completely legit resource. All right, yes, it's been delisted in Google, but sometimes you really, you really want to look up what's being said. You might not know. Is that going to be restricted? Hell yeah, I'm sure it's going to be restricted. Should it be restricted? Hell no, it shouldn't. Because again, it's maybe you need to know. Yeah, the internet is a resource, and you got to respect it as a resource. And if you don't, I mean, there's consequences that come with that, and you should definitely look after people that are not able to do that so well themselves online in an online environment. So that's the background, and let me just tell you a little story here. Okay, the back in 2012. All right. This is super important. It's actually the genesis of the modern internet as we know it. It's not that long ago, but this is when the internet met real life. Okay, and this is the first time, really, that something very much like the, just to recap here, oppose that. Not going to do what it says it is. At least it's going to break the internet before it does. That the KOSA, the Screen Act, the so-called Stop Hate Act, the Block Beard Act, okay? Before any of those, because they're actually eerily similar, they're quite similar in some respects. There's SOPA and PIPA. SOPA and PIPA were bad legislation in 2012, right? Way back when. The internet really was never restricted before, or wouldn't have been, right? These didn't pass. They got a lot of support. They would have passed, but the internet collectively stood up, right? People stood up. Netizens, as we used to call ourselves, okay, citizens of the internet, netizens. We repelled this. We repelled this through a lot of legwork. Okay, this is not easy. We got organized. And there's a lot of brain trust, a lot of very, very bright, very forward-looking, and very globally minded and conscientious people. Not everyone had the same views, but they understood the underlying importance of the principle of freedom of access and freedom of knowledge, and the ability to, we have something called the pursuit of happiness. I believe that's in our the Declaration in the U.S. And the pursuit of knowledge, right? And it's actually I think along a parallel course. That's I draw that out from that same kind of understanding premise. So we protested successfully against SOPA and PIPA. What names? Okay, the so-called Stop Online Piracy Act. This is a lesson here. This can be done. Anyone telling you it's inevitable, love Asman for his hot takes and all, and he is right about a lot of crap, but he's wrong about some crap too. In fairness, but one of the things he's wrong about is the internet idea is inevitable. It's just not. I'm going to get into that, and I think a direct, like a more of a response to him, or just going into that. But that's not. We shouldn't just accept it. All right, we shouldn't just roll over and accept it. Not something I'd recommend. Not something our org is gonna recommend you do. These things are worth spreading the word about, being heard, right? Being civil, but being loud, and defeating, because this is not it's not good for us. It's not good for our internet, and having seen the internet rise and everything it's done and allowed people to do, some good, some bad, mostly good, neutral, and actually quite good. Um, it is actually imperative to protect. Had this passed, SOPA, Stop Online Piracy Act, and the Protect IP Act, you notice it's basically the same thing as like Block Beard, and this was more focused on IP protection, but it would have allowed, again, like full takedowns of websites, with like slight suspicion, or not really, like basically like private course of action, right? So someone fingers your website, oh, it goes into the abyss until some long, very well funded lawsuit on their side is concluded. That's kind of bullshit. So we opposed that. Fight for the Future was there. Actually, that was an org that was founded for that in that time. Um, and I've got to address something really quick here. But that is that's a success story, of how the internet and users were able to resist a big imposition of legislation that was not going to seriously help the situation, and would have definitely broken the internet, much as these bills will, as we know it. And there were some very important figures that were there, and that supported the protest, led it, among others, of someone that I deeply respect, and he showed a lot of people. Is a very inspiring figure. Name is Aaron Schwartz, and he actually had a role in the creation of Reddit, what am I thinking here, of um, the coding site GitHub. I think it was GitHub. The RSS feeds, like, there wasn't really RSS feeds until he did his thing. So he's very, very seminal, influential, and brilliant figure, who actually was kind of ruthlessly tracked down in a prosecution for trying to share a library. This is a long story with Aaron Schwartz, but you should look into him. Let me just. Oh, hold on. So, if you want to find out about his story, actually, where is he? I'm not sure if he's listed on this article. Anyway, he's you can very easily find him in Google. Just type in Aaron Schwartz. He kind of is a martyr for free access to knowledge and information to some people. Inspiration to many more. Okay, and he led some of the protests. That's something you should learn from. That's something we could all learn from. And so accordingly, I'm gonna recommend. Here's what I'm gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. As an org, we're going to. Here's some of the graphics from it. From that protest. Cheeseburger. Icon has cheeseburger. I know it's like 280p, but this and millions of other sites could be censored by the U.S. government. It was a big deal. They went black, right? They went dark. Okay, and basically there was an internet outage. Okay, there was this was the protest in NYC outside of Senator Schumer's office, I believe, and It was successful, and they were, they heard the netizens' voice and citizens' voices, okay, broadly, not just people that were always online, not just techies, but like the general public said, no, freedom of information, freedom of speech online matters that much. Just because people are pirating some crap doesn't mean we throw out, the whole machinery of justice on the assumption that we have to stop that at any cost. It's not the American way. It's not the internet ethos. So yeah, we shouldn't just put up with it. We shouldn't allow that just to roll over. And what this entails is go dark. Take your site, and basically post a notice of why your site is going dark, because of this, because of that, because of this, because of the so-called block beard, right? Don't have a bill number there, but go go dark. This is our recommendation. This is what we'll be doing. And for YouTube, because YouTube tomorrow, right, as of sometime, maybe Greenwich Mean or whatever time, could probably already starting now, is implementing their own age gate, and that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable to many people. It's not something there is public input about. Not that they're required to take that necessarily, private company, but there's very good reasons to be skeptical or doubt that's going to really. I mean, if you ever dealt with their AI, you ever try to comment and have a comment disappear and it's nothing bad. Not even getting into the copyright claim stuff. If their AI is that good, and that not so good right now, I don't even want to imagine what it's going to be like when they're trying to force people to show their ID and scan their eye. Euphemism here, right? They're not actually doing this just yet that I know of, but to scan your eyeball to log into YouTube, like that's it's just unnecessary, and I don't think it's going to do much beyond what their systems already are doing and not doing to protect people online, vulnerable people. So we're going to be making our whole channel dark for the duration, probably a few days at least, if not longer. It could be permanent. And the site gbamps.org will be going dark in protest of these kinds of provisions, with instructions to hand out to contact your senators and representatives to deal with these kinds of things by opposing them, because they're not a good plan to tackle these issues. Long story short, and they will break the internet, and that comes. It's a information medium a lot of people rely on. They may actually be impacted negatively by not having access to information or being impeded in their access, more than some eventuality of something really bad happening in one specific case. Don't break the internet just because something bad may happen. There's better ways. So that's what we're going to be doing. I recommend everyone spread the word on this. It doesn't stop this kind of thing if you don't take action to stop it. Spread the word. This is kind of beyond, like what we really strictly want to tackle. Strictly speaking, right? Like we wanted to deal more narrowly with with companies and product quality and all that. But then we look at SKG and we have all of this that's coming up. So this is nothing that we can skip on. It's nothing that we can ignore. This is part of our goal in educating people and tracking and informing people, stuff like this. So that's why we're doing the live stream. That's what this is. The purpose of this here is about. Remember SOPA and PIPA. Okay, internet goes on strike. You can do it on your sites, on your socials, and in particular YouTube, because they're leading out ahead of this for whatever reason. And it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt creators. It's going to hurt users. It's going to make the whole thing a mess. If anyone's helped by it, that's great. But it's much more certain those things are going to happen. So we'll be blacking out our media on YouTube for the foreseeable future, and on the website, because this is stuff that needs, this is most crucial. People need to oppose this stuff, and then we'll get back to playing games like we all want to. So appreciate your all's patience and reviewing some of the legislation and stuff, and listening to me talk forever here. Any comments you want to give or any questions, you can drop it in the comments, or you can email us at gbamfs @gmail.com, and we'll be happy to get back to you on that. Appreciate your all hanging with me, and hopefully you learned some stuff. You have a good night, and we got to do what we can to save the internet. So rock on.